Wednesday, June 27th, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. There's an old saying that says, if you really want to hide something, you hide it in plain sight. And it's very interesting because yesterday I went up to the City of London to see an old friend, and then I decided to go into the Bank of England museum. And it was really enlightening. The Bank of England admits that printing money without gold backing, or QE, leads to the debasement of the currency. It leads to inflation because too much money is chasing too few goods. And at the same time, they tell us that quantitative easing is necessary in the economy. And I brought this, and I'll read it later. I'd like to tell you as well that I wrote an article in Steemit with a lot of pictures of the City of London and the Bank of England, and I'll put it below in the description. I will put some of the pictures here in this video, but not all of them. What I want to talk about is this, that the Bank of England says that printing money leads to inflation. And also some interesting facts about the stockholders at the Bank of England. You'll be surprised who was a stockholder at the Bank of England, but I'll leave that to the end. Before I go further, I'll look at the markets here. Yesterday, of course, the stock market finished up on the day, but it came off quite a bit. For example, the Dow was up more than 0.8%, and it only finished up 30 points. So not a great day. Technical wise, S&P as well came off and finished near the lows of the day, even though it finished up 6 points. Same thing for the NASDAQ. So right now it's 8:30 a.m. London, and let's see what the markets are doing here. Gold is down $1 at 1257.80. Range has been 1253 to 1260. Silver is 1623, down 6 cents. Range has been 1617 to 1633. So precious metals still under pressure. And I'm not concerned as usual. You know, if you hold the real thing, that will always protect you. If you want to be greedy and you buy into this get-rich-quick scheme of speculation, which isn't a bad thing, if you want to do it. But if you really want to protect what you've earned and the wealth you've been able to save, gold and silver is still the ultimate, in my opinion. So, excuse me, the Dow right now is down 131 points. Is down 0.5%, 24,150. So S&P is down 10, 2712, down 0.4%. NASDAQ is down 36, or 0.5% at 7,031. The currencies are fairly steady. The pound is unchanged at 132.25. Euro is up 0.2% at 116.68. And the dollar is down against the yen by 0.33% at 109.73. So again, gold seems to be trading independently of the currencies at the moment, because whenever the dollar goes down now against the yen, gold doesn't do anything, doesn't go higher. And even when, yeah, it's just strange. But anyway, we know what that's all about, don't we? So the other commodity I wanted to talk about, the other interesting thing I wanted to talk about is crude oil. Crude oil has been a lot of talk about OPEC and everything lately, but it's still going up. We're back above $70. And right now it's $70.40, up 1/3%. And I'll show you this chart. Yeah, recently crude topped just under $73, and then it corrected last week back down to around 63, and look how it's coming back now. So we're very close to retesting that high that we saw in the towards the end of May. So that's going to be problem for central bankers and their so-called low inflation that they talk about. Yeah, I went to the Bank of England Museum. I think I'd been there before, but I didn't really go in there and look around. But yesterday I decided to go in. I had my camera on my iPhone. You're not supposed to take photos with flash, but if there's no flash, they said go ahead, take photos. So I did. And one thing, there's loads in there. And as I said, yeah, look at the article I wrote on Steam, and it's got more photos, not only of the Bank of England, but the city of London around the Bank of England. So one thing that I really found interesting was this: the restriction period, 1797 to 1821. So about almost 25 years. And what does it say? It says banknotes, too many or too few. And I'll read here. This is from the museum. I took this photo. So it says, throughout the eventful 24 years of the restriction, the printing and issue of notes was central amongst the bank's activities. And according to some, it was the overissue of this paper currency which was the root cause of the rise in the price of gold and the collapse of sterling on the Hamburg Exchange in 1809. A committee was appointed to inquire into the high price of bullion. It reported to the House of Commons in June 1810, and in its report is nowadays acknowledged today, all right, acknowledged to be one of the most significant records in monetary history. So it's acknowledged to be significant that if you print money, and the currency will be debased, and the price of gold will go up. And it says, the problem lay, the report contended, with the overissue of notes, particularly £1 and £2, by the bank. Excuse me. Too many notes had been issued, not too much. Too much money chased too few goods. The value of money was diminished, and the classic formula for inflation was completed. So here you have the Bank of England admitting, and I know this is in 1810, so over 200 years ago, but they admit in this little snippet of history said here that this report nowadays is acknowledged to be one of the most significant records in monetary history. Why is it significant? Well, because it shows that printing money leads to inflation. Money that's not backed by, printing paper money, of course, currency, leads to inflation because it results in too much money chasing too few goods. It's not backed by real assets like gold or silver. And nowadays, though, I took this free pamphlet from the Bank of England, Quantitative Easing Explained, putting more money into our economy to boost spending. So stable inflation promotes a healthy economy. Low and stable inflation is crucial to thriving, prosperous economy. The Bank of England aims to keep inflation at the target 2% set by the government. So how 2% inflation over 40 years, you lose half the value of the currency. So how can that be good? So you see, it's a cognitive dissonance. On one side, the Bank of England says that printing money leads to inflation. On the other side, they say that inflation is good, and they had to go back to backing the Bank of England with gold again after 1821. And why did they have this restriction period? Well, it was during the Napoleonic Wars. We've in the UK we've had the restriction period since 1931 now. Why have we had that? Well, we had World War II, and then Bretton Woods wasn't really the pound wasn't really backed. It was the dollar, and so it's been 86, 87 years, the restriction period right now. And look how much inflation we've had. So now it's different, though. Now inflation's good. One thing they say here, it says, if inflation looks set to rise above target, then the bank raises rates to slow spending and reduce inflation. Similarly, if inflation looks set to fall below 2%, it reduces bank rate to boost spending and inflation. So how come they haven't raised rates recently? Especially if, I know they look at the CPI, but I want people to look at the RPI, because retail price index, unlike the CPI, they account for housing costs that most households have, the average person. And right now that's running at 3.3%. You can see here in the last 5 years, it has been below 2%, but very briefly between 2015 and 2016. And that's if you believe these numbers, of course, they're government numbers. And now it's, since the beginning of 2017, it's been running way above 2%. It's got up to 4%, and now it's dropped. So how come they haven't raised rates? Well, because they want to debase the currency, and that's why you need to buy gold and silver. And they know that, the Bank of England, and that's why they manipulate the price of gold, because they want people to stay in the dark about inflation. Just an interesting point about being there. They're into gold, the Bank of England. They know that gold is real money. So I got the chance to touch this 400-ounce bar. Unfortunately, it's well guarded. I couldn't try to take it. There you go. It's actually a Swiss PAMP bar, 400 ounces, worth about $500,000 at current prices. The other thing I wanted to talk about that was really interesting, there's two more things actually. The first one is that I found out that George Washington and Martha Washington were stockholders of the Bank of England. And why? Well, because Martha Washington was a widow, and her husband left some stock, Bank of England stock, for her and her children. So here's the proof. Really interesting. So when people come out and say, "Oh, it's this group of people that run everything," but if you look here also at the list of stockholders they have in the 1720s, this is only one page. Unfortunately, they didn't provide the whole thing. So the mechanism is what's wrong about the Bank of England, not the ethnicity of the people or anything, because all kinds of people were involved. So the other interesting thing, just as I was getting out of leaving the museum, out the door on the left-hand side, just before you go out, this is what I saw. So, and what is this? Well, it's caduceus. Caduceus, and I'll read a little bit about caduceus. Most people think it's a sign of medicine, but if you look here, it says caduceus is the staff carried by Hermes in Greek mythology, and consequently by Hermes Trismegistus in Greco-Egyptian mythology. The same staff was also borne by heralds in general, for example by Iris, the messenger of Hera. It is a short staff entwined by two serpents, sometimes surmounted by wings. In Roman iconography, it was often depicted being carried by, in the left hand of Mercury, the messenger of the gods. And this is what's really interesting. The messenger of the gods, guide of the dead, and protector of merchants, shepherds, gamblers, liars, and thieves. And it says here, some accounts suggest that the oldest known imagery of caduceus have their roots in a Mesopotamian origin with the Sumerian god Ningishizida. Right? So Samaria, Mesopotamia, Babylon. The interesting thing that I got from that was that it says it's a protector of merchants, well, merchant bankers, right? Shepherds, agriculture, gamblers, traders, liars, and thieves. So there you go. That's the symbol outside the Bank of England Museum. Hidden in plain sight. Is it surprising that on one hand they say that inflation is necessary, on the other hand they say that inflation is a problem, and it's created by printing money? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Subscribe if you haven't yet to the channel, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, share it far and wide, and you can also follow me on Steemit, DTube, and on Twitter, and I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.